I went to the north of Yemen, Sana'a and the surrounding governorates, Bayda, Marib also, and then some areas in the south, Hadramaut, Mahra, and also surrounding governorates. I wouldn't say Yemen is being divided, but rather Yemen is being fragmented into various stations of center or centers of powers. One of them would be Marib in the east. The other one would be obviously in the north under Saleh and Houthis control. And then the third center of power in Yemen would be in Aden, which is obviously under too many controls, including the theoretical forces of the President Hari, and then also the most importantly, the southern Iraq. Um, Overall, the country is, 3 years of war. There was a limit to what it can survive and to what it can hold, and I think that limit is now gone. Basically, in especially in the north, where there is more destruction of the infrastructure, and more obviously in areas like Taz, where there is an extensive attacks by the Houthis and Saleh in these areas. But it is a country, it was going through a war, and now it's going even to the phase that's worse than war, which is basically what war or what long war creates: a combination of a complete chaos, combination of distribution of weapons to everyone, combination of a thriving black market, thriving warlords, but also, most importantly, is a destruction of an economy. The absence of salaries, the absence of some sort of job in Yemen except if you are fighting, has left more damage on the life of Yemenis, more than the war itself. In the north, in Sana'a, for example, very few hospitals are still functioning, and these hospitals most of the time are hospitals that basically serve the wounded from the war. The regular, usually clinic work that it does for citizens are not there anymore. Um, Cholera has overtaken most of the areas in the north. There was a bridge last year, led by the Swedes and the Swiss, to pledge aid for Yemen, but there is an absolute limit to what that can make. With the absence of a mechanism to control the exchange rate of Yemen, and the dysfunctionality of the central bank of Aden, 30% of that aid or of that worth of money is actually going to bankers, ending up being an aid for bankers. Basically, just because they make a lot of money between the official rate at the bank and the rate that's actually in the market or in the black market that exists there. So, I mean, it's a country going slowly, or it was going. It's a country that was going slowly in the path of Syria, and right now it's going in both the path of Syria and Libya combined, along with one of the biggest famines and hunger crises in the world. Politically, it impacted Yemen more than anywhere else in the region. Militarily, it didn't necessarily. What does that mean is obviously that it ended this consensus or theoretical consensus within the GCC about the war in Yemen. Um, and that obviously Yemen is a place where all of these countries, especially the four countries, have different alliances, or especially UAE and Saudi to be accurate, and Qatar. And that obviously reflected in their alliances in the ground. So that's a big impact on the matter of shifting alliances inside Yemen. But militarily, Qatar's rule was very limited. It had tens of soldiers. Mostly were in Saudi. It didn't play a major role in this war, militarily speaking, at all. The biggest military participation of Qatar in Yemen was Al Jazeera Arabic, which basically adopted the Saudi narrative and adopted the UAE narrative until this crisis started. But at the same time, it has taken most of the attention that was slowly emerging on Yemen. It has taken the efforts of diplomacy, and it has become the diplomats and the officials' number one case right now, instead of Yemen, which is not surprising, keeping in mind the absolute Western and international interest in the oil-rich Gulf. Um, it's it wasn't surprising also because the continuation of the GCC or of the Arab coalition in Yemen was going to eventually lead into a fragmentation of this coalition because everyone there or every country has a very different agenda and definitely went into the war not because they thought it was the solution or the best way, but just because everyone had their own agenda at that time for the war in Yemen. In regards to the UN peace process in Yemen, it's not that it's on hold, but actually we're backward. Now the Houthis no more see the UN envoy as a middle or as an independent neutral broker, and that obviously impacts a lot how one side views the envoy. But there is two major problems with the current UN plan for Yemen. One is the architecture of this plan by itself. The Arab Gulf coalition and the Yemeni government says that well, Iran is playing a role in destroying Yemen or in this war in Yemen, but they have no way or no formula where they're negotiating with Iran about it. They complain of Iran, and it's basically not part of the conversation that is happening there. That's one architectural problem with it. Two, there isn't enough amongst the G5 or the permanent five states within the UN Security Council. There doesn't seem to be enough will right now to end the war in Yemen. Otherwise, if there is, a new UN resolution can actually, a timeline UN resolution can actually enforce that if that decision is there. And this is more or less the support that the UN Security Council gives to the UN envoy is all he got, basically, to run the mediation in Yemen. That's the larger problem. The less important problem, in my opinion, is the capabilities and the tools of the UN itself in mediating a conflict in Yemen. The way the UN was structured is to solve conflicts within countries or between countries, not within countries. And the conflict in Yemen is a combination of a conflict within the country and is a conflict between the country and other countries. Depending on which side you take, that there is ultimately a problem with these things or with different countries outside that. So that is much more than the abilities, the tools, and the capabilities of the current UN envoy, who comes from an aid background rather than a diplomatic negotiation background. And that's the second level of the process or of the problems the UN is facing in Yemen as a peace broker. Let alone that the war in Yemen is one of these wars that definitely needs more than the UN efforts, more than the UN peace plan in order for peace to exist or in order for peace to succeed.